So we have before us H 729, and this is a judiciary bill, and there are some fees in it. So Eric, can you give us like the 2,000 foot view? Miscellaneous judiciary procedures. So if you can give us a quick walkthrough and then tell us, I believe there are fees in there.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Eric Fitzpatrick with the Office of Legislative Counsel, here to talk with you for a few minutes, as the chair said, about House Bill number 729, which is the annual Judiciary Miscellaneous Procedures Bill. It's a part of the judiciary's workflow every year, as it is with a number of other committees, their annual miscellaneous bill. And as it often does, it has a couple of fees in here in a few different sections. So probably makes the most sense. Is that right, Senator Cummings, to just focus on the sections where the fees are?
Just give us a 10,000 foot overview of anything that's changed, just so we know what it is.
All right, so I'm going to start with section 7. And this has to do with the fees that are charged for when motions are filed in court. Now, in general, when you file a lawsuit in court or when you file an appeal with the Supreme Court, there's a fee for initiating the action of $295. There's also a separate a fee that will be charged for what's known as post-judgment motions. So in other words, the main part of the case has already been filed, whether it was ended up in a jury verdict or perhaps a motion to dismiss was granted. Maybe the case was dismissed. The main part of the case has already happened. But sometimes that's what's known as a post-judgment motion will be filed. So that could be, for example, a motion to reopen the judgment. Or perhaps some new evidence was discovered or some new information came to light. And for post-judgment motions, the fee is different. It's $90. So it's a $90 fee, generally speaking, for a post-judgment motion. There is, you may probably recall that the legislature has done a lot of work over the last few years on sealing records, sealing criminal records, and expunging criminal records. Now, technically speaking, a motion to seal a record, to seal someone's criminal record or to expunge it would be a post-judgment motion, right? That's being filed after the criminal case already happened. It's after judgment. So that would be subject to this $90 post-judgment motion fee. However, when the legislature has been working in this area, as I said, for the last several years, they made an exemption so that the post-judgment fee, the $90 post-judgment fee, does not apply to motions to seal someone's criminal records or to expunge their criminal records. So that's generally true. Again, there was an exception to the exception. This is all existing law. And the one place in which the $90 post-judgment motion fee does apply is for DUI cases. So if someone has a DUI conviction and they want to have their record sealed or expunged, you do have to pay the $90 fee. Now that's all existing law. What happened over the previous summer was that it was discovered that contrary to what I think some folks in the legislature intended, this $90 fee to seal seal or expunge someone's criminal record was being charged for juvenile matters, for juvenile DUIs, not just adult DUIs, but when a juvenile got charged with DUI, or in fact, there's a separate provision for sealing or expunging records for anybody under age 25, in fact. So that fee was being charged for those motions as well. And that was, I guess, contrary. I didn't work on that bill originally a couple of years ago, but evidently that was contrary to what the legislature had intended. They only wanted this $90 fee to apply for adult DUI motions. So over the summer, the Attorney General's office, the Chief Superior Judge, and Vermont Legal Aid got together and they came up with the language that's in Section 7, which is to clarify that this $90 post-judgment fee, which applies for motions to seal or expunge a DUI record, only applies to adults. It doesn't apply for juvenile records or for someone who's under age 25. So that's the gist of it. It's a clarification of when that fee applies and clarifying that it doesn't apply for motions to seal or expunge records by people under age 25 for DUI cases.
So is that the, if I may, the 23 BSA 1201A, that is referring to adult
DUI, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Got that question. Okay, let's go on. Question title. I got a fee. Where's the next one?
The next two fees are the last two sections of the bill, section 36 and 37, I believe it is. And these have to do with fees for fingerprinting. Actually, I'm sorry, 35, 36, and 37. So it's fees that that the sheriff's office collects for both service of process. That means when somebody's being sued, and so they're served with process by the sheriff ordinarily, served with a summons to come to court and a complaint, so they have notice of what it is they're being sued for. That's section 35. And 36 and 37 have to do with fingerprinting. So the Judiciary Committee heard testimony from Sheriff Mark Anderson, who's the president of the Vermont Sheriff's Association, that the costs involved in these proceedings that sheriffs are involved in, serving process, taking fingerprints from people, the equipment that they need for the fingerprints, et cetera, have increased substantially, and the fees have not increased since the early and mid 1980s. So the proposal is to increase both. You'll see in section 35, and this has to do with service of process. This is serving the complaint and summons when somebody is being sued in the civil division of the Superior Court. Currently, the fee is $50 per service, and the proposal is to increase that fee from $50 to $75. And sections 36 and 37 have to do with fingerprinting fees. And this applies when, and there's quite a few places in law where it's required that somebody get a criminal background check. That could be, for example, for someone who's getting licensed as a teacher, someone who's a substitute teacher, someone who's adopting a child, daycare centers.
I've done twice in the past year.
Yes, it happens in a variety of circumstances.
I'm on the VSAC board. So hopefully we're on some national thing now and I won't have to get fingerprinted again.
Right. Well, in all likelihood, you did it at either the sheriff's office or a local police department.
We did the first one with the local police department. This last one had to be an authorized person to do it. I had to go out to an accounting firm on the Barry Montpelier Road and do the digital fingerprints. It was quite a process.
Sounds like it. Well, the sheriffs do quite a bit of it as well, as do some local police departments. Yep, they operate what they call fingerprint identification centers. Not all of them, but a number of them are now using these automated fingerprint identification systems, which are pretty pricey pieces of equipment. And they have also similarly found, or at least that's what the Judiciary Committee heard testimony, that again, that the expenses involved have exceeded the monies that they're bringing in and their ability to replace the equipment. And so they asked for an increase in that fee as well, the fee for fingerprinting. And you'll see that proposal is that it goes, I believe it's 30. Let me just double check that. 35, sorry. So the proposal is to increase from $25 to $35 for purposes of the general fingerprinting statute. And then there's a specific one, section 37, that applies just to educational settings. And that one is proposed to be increased from 15 to 35. Now, I should indicate that earlier this afternoon, the Senate Education Committee talked about section 37 in particular, the fees for fingerprints with respect to members of the educational profession. And they still have some questions about that. So I don't know that they have the bill. I think you have the bill, but they may continue. Pardon me?
I said, we have the bill.
Right. So,
I was hoping we could vote it out, but if there's some concern, I guess we should email and see if the education committee would like to come in and comment on that. Maybe tomorrow we could put it on. Okay, that's good to know before we get to the floor.
sure.
I assume if they're gonna ask anything, they're gonna ask to have it dropped lower than the 35.
Yes, I think that was the sense I got, that there may be some concern about that number in the educational setting, right?
Now, do they have to be fingerprinted every year, or is this an annual charge?
I thought I read the statute to say that they were good for a year, so that perhaps they do have to, but then Sheriff Anderson thought that he thought that some of them were good for 5 years. So it may be that individual districts can make policies about that. I'm not sure. But they last for a certain amount of time, but I thought the statute said that they were good for a year.
Okay,
But
Okay.
it's possible.
so we will drop an email down there and see if they'd like to come up and comment before we vote this out. All right, committee questions. Seems fairly cut and dried. Senator Hardy.
Yeah, I would imagine that the education committee is concerned about this because even if you're just a substitute teacher, you have to get your fingerprints, and there's such a shortage of substitute teachers, paraprofessionals and teachers that any little thing can prevent people from deciding to do it. So this does seem like a pretty big jump. When did you say the last time this $15 fee was increased?
I believe it was sometime in the 1980s, I thought, what I heard.
Yeah. I understand that the cost has increased, but it's a pretty tough time to increase the fee for substitute teachers.
Well, we actually started a lot of this sealing and expungement with a grandmother who had a marijuana possession charge when she was in college, and she got a criminal record and could not chaperone her grandchild's school trip. I was on judiciary, so that was some number of years ago, but that's what started us thinking as we were talking about cannabis, about of all the people that had their lives impacted for a mistake in college, and an awful lot of it was possession. When I went to school, everybody possessed something. So it might have been Ivy banana peels, but they possessed something. It's on the back page 37, 38, and then there was one,
Page 26.
yeah, further up. Section 37, section 36. Yeah,
So,
we started with section 7.
so Eric, is this part of the judiciary's budget? Does this want to go into the judiciary's budget?
You mean the money that they collect from the fingerprint fees?
Yes.
No, they go to the agency.
To the law
Sure.
enforcement agencies?
Yeah, and if the state police, because the state police also do it, when the state police does it, it goes to a special fund that goes back to the Department of Public Safety. So it depends who does it. If the sheriff does it, it goes to their budget. If the state police do it, it goes to public safety.
It's not just substitute teachers we're talking about here, right?
No.
There is that, but apparently there is a concern about does it say teachers?
Well, under section 37 is Title 16, so that's education.
Yeah,
So I would.
Yes, that's the
Teacher,
teachers, exactly.
that's
paraprofessional,
teachers.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
And
So
section
that-
36 is everybody else.
We did a special section there, so we could reduce that fee, but I'll bet that's a big part of the revenue is teachers, because that's a large group of people that have to get done once every so many years. So,
How much is that raise?
Yeah, is there a fiscal note on this?
I don't think so. I
well,
don't.
David's with us, so maybe.
I did write a fiscal note for this bill.
Ah, see?
In that case, yes.
Good catch, Eric.
See,
Yes.
judiciary doesn't get notes, we
Thanks,
do.
Dan.
So for the record, Dan Dickerson from Joint Fiscal. Since you're talking about the fingerprinting, I'll jump to that one first. Currently, when the state collects these fees, they go to a fingerprint fee special fund. That fingerprinting at the state level raises about $205,000 annually. Of that amount, about $30,000 is from the teachers. The rest is from the general population. And so I think I calculated, 8,000 to 8,200 individual fingerprintings throughout the year, and about 1,200 of those are teachers. And so if you increase the fees on everyone, including the teacher licensing, it's about 80,000 of new revenue that goes to the fingerprint fee special fund every year. And then if you don't do the teachers, let me just figure out this math. If you don't do the teachers, you would reduce that by about 12,000. So you'd have about, approximately 68,000 of new revenue. But if you do them all, then it's 80,000. And then jumping back to section 35, this is where the service of civil process fee is raised from 50 to 75. Currently, those various fees raise about 75,000 annually. And actually, I'll backtrack. The sheriffs and constables collect those fees. 15% goes to the state, I think, on a quarterly basis. The rest stays with the law enforcement agency. So of that 15% on an annual basis, we're getting about 75,000 under current law that goes to the general fund. With the fee increase, that'll increase to approximately 110,000 to the general fund. So it's about a $35,000 increase annually for the general fund. So it's big money.
But the biggest return, I assume, would be to the sheriff's department. Because
Yes.
getting the bulk of it. And somewhere floating around my memory, this is important, I believe, to the sheriffs, who, just from what I've heard, they're struggling with their budgets. I know we're having trouble getting sheriffs to do security at courthouses. We're having trouble getting sheriffs to transport. So I believe this fee is important to the sheriffs and maybe the constables, but there is some import to this. And it seems like a fee that hasn't been increased since, no, has this one been increased? When did we, this one was the 1980s? I know the two fingerprints were, this one was too?
That's what I was talking about.
I don't have the answer to that question. Maybe
Okay.
Eric would.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that one. I know the fingerprint one was the 80s, but let me double check on that one.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
So Dan, in your fiscal note, you have on section 36, 37, and it's just in the last paragraph of your fiscal note, you say we're increasing the fee from 25 to 35. But the current fee for the Entitled 20 is 25, but the current fee in Title 16 is 15. So you have an error in the narrative part of it. I don't know if that error is going into your math part of it?
That is, I don't think it would be a huge difference, but yeah, I missed that piece of language. And so rather than, I think it would be an additional 12,000 on that 80,000. So if you raise the teacher's fees, it'll be, you know, roughly 90,000 annually in new revenue, and not 80. I apologize for missing that.
Where does the fingerprint special fund go?
That is, that money is for use by the Vermont Crime Information Center. They fall under Department of Public Safety.
Okay. Yeah,
So it does not go to local sheriffs then?
no, the service fee goes to sheriff.
Well, when it's collected at the state level or by a state agency, then it's retained in that special fund. But if a fingerprinting is done at the local or county level, then the fee stays at that level.
And the service fee we get 15%.
Yeah, the service fee.
5% stays with the sheriff's department.
The service fee is collected by the sheriffs and constables, and they pass the 15% back to the state, correct?
So that's where the big money is. Okay,
I guess, sure.
yes.
So this, I guess, is somewhat of an optics question for me, like Senator Brock has said, you know, it doesn't make sense to be raising taxes when we have all this surplus money. Well, we have all these need for substitute teachers, and this, even though it may be justified in terms of cost, I'm wondering if maybe we could do a carve out for this group or do a later effective date or something. It just seems like the wrong time to send that message.
Saw an email pop up. Ever Faithful has sent out an email to the head of education saying they are taking further testimony on that tomorrow. The other thing that plays into that is the safety of children. So,
Well, this isn't saying
No,
I would
this is-
get the
this is
fingerprint,
fine. Okay.
it was just a.
Anyway,
separate fee.
they're doing their due diligence on it. We will hear from them.
It's just
before
one
we
of
vote anything out.
one of the fees is being raised $10 and the other one's being raised $20. So that's the other, they're being raised to the same amount, but from a lower base. So there's a bigger increase for teachers.
So we will hear from them and see what their recommendation is. Senator McDonald.
The administration said they weren't doing fees. Is this from the judiciary branch of government? Let's put this out. Is that why we're getting-
This is a judiciary, yes, miscellaneous judiciary. So, yes,
So they have a separation of powers.
We have that tradition in this country, I believe
Oh,
it's
I
in the
mean,
Constitution.
That accounts for what appears to be a double standard. In fact, it's a separation of powers.
And we set the fees. It's not a matter, we set the fees because we're the legislature.
Okay. Committee, thank you, Eric and Dan. We will wait to hear from the Education Committee, and we now have a 15-minute break. Be back.
Senator Pearson had his hand up.
Senator Pearson.
Just quickly, and I'm glad we're hearing from Ed, but for most teachers, at least current teachers, am I right that school districts pick up this fee?
I've heard that there's a mix on that. Some do, and I think you're right that probably that the majority do, but not all of them. That's what I've heard anecdotally.
Yeah. Okay. I just think it's important to acknowledge it's really an inner taxpayer transfer in a way, but it comes back on taxpayers in a sense.
Yeah.
One other thing that I heard anecdotally is that some jurisdictions, they just charge the $25 fee for everyone. They don't necessarily know that there's a separate $15 fee for teachers to be fingerprinted. So that was something I heard from testimony.
Oh, and so they're charging more. I had to do it last year. I think I had to pay for it myself when I was a substitute teacher.
So maybe be some to do. they're different. We'll hear from Ed, their jurisdiction, and see what they find out. They are taking testimony, but we won't get this out until next week. If they're taking testimony tomorrow, I don't think they'll be ready to talk to us before the end of the day, but maybe. Okay, back here at 3:43. You weren't here on time last time.